And I just recently listened to this album. Oh, let's check out the feat. He didn't have many features on this album, but he had like Larry Blackman and a guy from Cameo. Well, Larry Blackman was in Cameo, but he had Larry Blackman and Cameo on his album. He had Left Eye on his album, God Rest the Dead. He had Left Eye on his album. And he had Camp Low on his album. And Camp Low probably had one of the better albums. I think that was 97. If it wasn't 97, it was 96. Camp Low dropped Uptown Saturday Night, I believe it was called, with Lucchini and a slew of other hits. To me, one of the most underrated hip hop duos of all time. So they were on that album as well. So let's get into the Pooba tracks. Let's talk about the tracks that Pooba likes so much that he's imploring you to check these out. Okay, so Big Willie Style had a track named Candy. Check that out. Y'all know another dope one. Check that out. Yes, yes, y'all. Okay, that was a track that has Camp Low on it. Y'all go out there and check that out. And out of the 4 or 5 monster hits, the mega bombs that he dropped in that year, out of all of those songs, I really, really enjoyed Men in Black. That the dances, I think he won awards for the choreography and just like the way the video was shot and all of that stuff back then. You can't hate on Will Smith, okay? You really can't, you know. And we're sticking with music. We're just gonna stick with the music at this moment. So, Big Willie Style. Is it something that I would bump every day? No. Is there a lot of filler? Yes. Is there a lot of stuff that I just can't resonate with? Yes. But entertainment wise, if I had to do a friendly, PG-ish type party back then, I'm definitely pulling out Big Willie Style. Yeah, I'm doing that. But either way, that was dope. I'm not going to suggest you go out there and listen to it if you haven't already listened to it. I take these risks because I do it so that you don't have to. But if you want to, be my guest. Big Willie Style was covered in 1997. Let's move on to the next album on this list, shall we? Okay. So we got The Firm, which was a hell of a project. It sounded really, really good on paper. A lot of people said that The Firm flopped. Dr. Dre mentions it himself. This is an Aftermath album, and everybody knows that Aftermath is the label or company that Dr. Dre made after he left Death Row and all of that jazz. And if I'm not mistaken, this was the first project off that label, off of the Aftermath label. Was it that or was it that Dr. Dre? I don't know. Either way, we're talking about The Firm right now. So, Firm dropped October 21st in 1997, right? Had a slew of, not producers, but it had a slew of guest appearances on there. Nori was on that album. Everybody, Noriega was on that album. Nature was on the album. And I think the confrontation with that is that he replaced Cormega. Don't quote me. But those who know. I keep looking at my phone. My phone's over here. I keep looking at it. Don't mind me. It's force of habit. Cannabis was on that album. Believe it or not. Cannabis was on that. And Cannabis was dope. Okay? Cannabis was dope at that time especially. Like one of a kind type of rapper, freestyler, whatever you want to call him. He just had something about the way he rapped that just, grabbed your attention. The stuff he was saying was not like all the other rappers, which is why I'm going to say what I say next. You're sitting in a bubble with Nature, Nas, AZ, and Foxy Brown, and he's talking about, 1,000 degrees Celsius, he's going to make an MC melt. It kind of didn't fit that drug mafioso feel that The Firm was given at the time. So, but it's still one of my favorite tracks, one of my favorite verses from Cannabis as well. So these people were on there. Production-wise, let's get back to the production because when I was younger, I thought Dr. Dre produced the whole thing. And for the most part, he did. But let's just go back and see who else. Once again, Trackmasters was a part of this album. Trackmasters had a couple of tracks that they had to do on the Firm album. And somebody named Chris the Glove Taylor, I know when I was looking through the credits, he was on just about every track. So you had Chris the Glove Taylor, Trackmasters, Poke and Tone, or Tone and Poke, however which way you want to put them, together they're the Trackmasters, and of course Dr. Dre. Pooba tracks. The Firm hit you with Phone Tap. I don't think that was the first single off that album, But Phone Tap was definitely the one that everybody remembers. I think it got remixed like 2 or 3 times, R&B wise and all of that kind of stuff. So Phone Tap was definitely on that list. Then you had Firm Biz. That was one of my favorite joints. That might have been the second single off of the Firm album. Firm Biz was dope. I'm Leaving. That's the joint with Nori. Go back and check that out. You probably heard somebody freestyle over that a couple of times too, but that was a dope track. And Desperados, that was the joint. I believe that was AZ, Nature, and Cannabis. It was a weird combination, but somehow they pulled it off. Again, people said that the Firm album was a flop. If you sit down and listen to it without expecting it to be whack, it came out a pretty decent project. And even the guys who made the album, Dr. Dre, Nas, a lot of the guys talk about the album and say, they dropped the ball on this end, they dropped the ball on that end. This person wasn't showing up, that person wasn't showing up. This didn't happen, that didn't happen. But, it's a decent album. I could go back and remember when they was talking about Nas' second album and they were saying that was a flop. But Nas' second album was actually a classic. It wasn't better than Illmatic, but It Was Written was not a bad album at all. You probably hear people play It Was Written a little bit more than you hear people play Illmatic. So that was that. Let's keep this thing going because I don't want to take too much of your time up. We're only doing a little quick flashback to 1997. And hold on for 1 second. All right. Be right back. Last but not least, this is one of, he was one of my unsung heroes as far as rap is concerned back in the day. Queens representative. And if you walk into a room and this is playing, you'd probably think you're listening to Mobb Deep, but you got to listen a little bit more carefully because when you do that, you'll realize you're listening to somebody named Mic Geronimo. Okay. And he dropped his second album, Vendetta, in 1997. Let me make sure I'm getting my dates right. Mic Geronimo dropped Vendetta November 4th of 1997. So let's see. He had to compete against Jay-Z and Rakim, dropping the same day, right? So yeah, that was November 4th, 1997. Production wise, Diddy was on this album, and that seems a little weird because he set off the album with Don't Nothing Move But the Money, which is a very popping track. Like it was poppy. It made people move. I slightly remember the video being very, very different from what he gave us initially from the first album, which was called The Natural, by the way. If you guys want to do a double take, go back, listen to Mic Geronimo's The Natural. That was his first album. Very, very 90s, very, very dope, very, very MC. This album was a little bit brighter. He's got Diddy on the album. He's got so many people. Not so much first, because these guys were out. Let me back up. Let me just go back and get my train of thought out. Let me talk about these producers. Diddy. We got Pete Rock. We got Buck Wild. We got Havoc. We got Royal Flush. We got K-Dev, Jersey Stand Up. Legendary Trackster and Marley Marl. So he pulled out a lot of people to get this album going. Okay. And Vendetta, although commercially it might not have been successful, it was definitely a treat for your casual to hardcore hip hop listener. All right. Feature wise, let's see, he had Carl Thomas on that album. He had Jay-Z on that album. He had Monifa on that album. And these are like people actual artists participating on the tracks as far as like rapping, singing, whatever the case is. One of my favorite Posse tracks. I know before I said 4321 was probably the best, but it doesn't mean it was the only. So as I'm listening to a bunch of cuts and stuff and kind of refreshing my memory, I almost completely forgot that he had a track called, oh my God, Usual Suspects. And that track included DMX, The Lox, Ja Rule. I used to think it was Fatal Hussein, but in fact it was Gaddafi from the Outlaws, okay? And when I tell you, when DMX set the tone for that album, I mean, not for the album, but for that song, and tore it off the frame as soon as it came on, everything from the beat to the way DMX just carried his first verse, rolled over into Ja Rule, then we got into the Lox, and it really was just Jadakiss and Styles. It was Sheik around that time wasn't really putting in no lyrical work like that, but Jadakiss and Styles were definitely the two frontmen for the Lox, and they was tearing shit up since then. So all of that in a nutshell. Oh man, and see, we're talking about 1997, and I'm really just recapping probably from October to December, maybe a little bit in November. So I'm not even grabbing all the Dope Posse tracks. But man, when I tell you, go back and listen to that track. Go back and listen to that track. I don't even think, this is 1997, mind you. I don't even think DMX had an album out yet. Okay, so that just goes to show you like the breed and the caliber of rappers we were listening to, the work they were putting in prior to their own projects. Okay, go back and check that out. Overall, Mike Geronimo, he could spit. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that this album was better than his first album, because his first album was a classic as well. Kind of had the same people on the first album too, with the exception of the Lost Boys. I think the Lost Boys was one of the few people that wasn't on this project. But everybody was moving around that time. It's 1997. Everybody kind of like, they're in first to second album mode, you know? So everybody's busy. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm going to say. More or less, it was definitely Vendetta. Mike Geronimo's Vendetta is a treat for your casual to hardcore hip hop listener. And well, wait a minute, I didn't give you my Pooba tracks. Here are the Pooba tracks off of the Vendetta album from Mike Geronimo. I know I'm saying that a lot. I got to cut that out in post. Yeah. So anyway, Nothing Moved But the Money, which is the very first track Diddy produced. Single Life is dope. I believe that's the joint with Carl Thomas and Jay-Z. Yeah, Carl Thomas and Jay-Z are on that track. Usual Suspects, which was the Posse track that I just got finished telling you about. And then you got Street Life. All right. And I'm missing a bunch of albums from 1997. I just didn't cover every single thing. And I'm going to name, this is going to be like, how you call it, like an honorable mention. So I'm going to run this down. And if you guys feel like I should talk about one of these albums or I should give it a review myself, please do. And I will do it and come back with that said album to be touched on. All right. But let me show you the albums that I'm going to run down, the albums that I didn't cover that came out in 1997 that was supposed to have an impact. These are the albums that were like looked at around this time. Again, it's like a quarterly thing. So it was like October, November, December. Before we get into 98, okay? We're in 97 right now. Don't hit the button yet. We're in 1997. But here are a couple of other albums that was supposed to get a decent listen to. I didn't get a chance to cover them. Forgive me. Doesn't mean it's whack. Doesn't mean it's great. I just didn't get a chance to cover them, or I never heard it. So here they go. 1 second. All right, so we got Luke Changing the Game. Luke Changing the Game. Mystical, Unpredictable. I have that album. I listened to that album. No Limit was a force in 1997, and Mystical was definitely one of the bigger guns coming out of that camp. So Spice One, the Black Bossolini. And listen to Spice One sparingly, but MJG dropped No More Glory in 1997. Rapping Forte, For the Hard Way. I don't think that was on my radar. MC8 dropped something in 1997, and it was called The Last Man Standing. Funk Dubious with the Troubleshooters. That's a hard sell, man. And then there was a clique called Not Enough. Don't know why I remember this group, but I do. Not hardcore, but horrorcore TLC kind of thing going on. Like that, I didn't do it. I didn't listen to it. All right, I don't know who did. If you heard any of these albums, please, you know what to do. Put it in the comments. All right, we covered a lot. Tell me, what albums did I miss? What albums am I forgetting? What was your favorite tracks on these albums? You know what I'm saying? Put them in the comments. Don't forget to like and share this content. All right. This is your boy Lil Pooba. We're going back to 2024 while we still got time left. And the next time I see you guys, it will be a trip back to 1998. So until then, y'all be good. Peace.